I never meant to notice him. It started the way all dangerous things do. Quietly, without warning, slipping through the cracks of habit and routine. He was just the new driver, polite, punctual, eyes lowered when he greeted me at the door. I remember thinking how young he looked, how clean his voice sounded when he said my name for the first time. Ma'am, I should have left it there, but I didn't. The morning he arrived, the world felt heavy with rain. The air carried that metallic scent, wet asphalt and beginnings. I had been half awake, coffee cooling beside unread emails, when I saw him waiting by the car, shoulders straight beneath a pressed white shirt, hair damp at the edges. Something about the way he stood, attentive, composed, as if waiting for command, stirred an old part of me I had buried years ago. "Good morning, ma'am," he said as he opened the car door. "Morning," I replied, stepping in without looking directly at him. But my reflection in the tinted window betrayed me. I saw my own eyes flick toward him, curious, too aware. His name was Ayan, 22, maybe 23. New to the city, he drove carefully, like someone who respected silence. I liked that about him. The car became a cocoon. No noise except the soft hum of the engine and the rhythm of rain against glass. At first, I told myself it was nothing, a harmless awareness, the way one notices light through curtains or the smell of jasmine at dusk. But the human heart has a way of lying beautifully, doesn't it? It was in the small moments, the way his fingers brushed mine when he handed me my phone, the way his gaze lingered a second too long in the rearview mirror before darting away. Once, he reached to adjust the air vent near me, his sleeve brushing my arm. I remember the faint scent of sandalwood and rain. It shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. He started learning my rhythms. When I liked my coffee, the routes I preferred, the music I didn't. I never told him these things. He just observed, quietly, like someone reading a poem they didn't want to disturb by turning the page too fast. One afternoon, after a long meeting that left me drained, I asked him to take the long route home along the coastline. The sun was melting into gold, and the sea wind tangled my hair. I leaned back, eyes closed, letting the day dissolve. "Is this your favorite time of day?" he asked softly. The question startled me. He had never spoken without being spoken to first. "Why?" I asked, still not opening my eyes. "You always look lighter around sunset." I opened my eyes then, and his were waiting in the mirror. Something electric passed between us, brief, sharp, undeniable. I looked away first. "It's just the light," I said. "Maybe," he murmured. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing that look, the quiet steadiness in his eyes. It wasn't bold, wasn't flirtatious. It was present, as if he saw me, not as the woman everyone else did, composed, untouchable, but as someone human. The next morning, I chose my outfit too carefully. Silk blouse, hair pinned just so. When he saw me, his eyes hesitated for half a second. I caught it. I shouldn't have cared, but the way he opened the door that day, slower, more deliberate, made my pulse flutter in ways I hadn't felt in years. I began to test him, though I wouldn't have admitted it then. I gave him instructions that made him linger close. "Wait, let me adjust my seatbelt. Could you reach the file in the back?" Harmless, I told myself. Always harmless. But every time his hand neared mine, every time our breath shared the same air, something inside me tightened and trembled. Once, as he parked outside the gallery, our hands brushed again. Neither of us moved away immediately. The moment stretched, too long, too charged. When I finally withdrew, I caught my reflection in the window. Flushed cheeks, parted lips. Who was this woman? After that, I started finding reasons to speak to him. Small things, conversations about the city, music, how he liked his tea. He answered with quiet respect, but there was something beneath it, something restrained. He never overstepped, never said too much, but I could feel the current between us growing stronger, denser. The world outside still saw me as the same, polished, distant, in control. But inside the car something shifted. It was as if we existed in a separate dimension, one made of silence and glances. Then came the night that changed everything. A charity event had run late. and by the time we left, the city was half asleep. The rain had started again, heavier this time, furious against the windshield. He drove in silence, eyes fixed on the road, hands steady on the wheel. I watched him, the concentration in his jawline, the way the lights from passing cars flashed across his face. The air was thick, humming with words we hadn't spoken. At a red light, he turned slightly, his voice low. "Are you cold?" I shook my head, though goosebumps covered my skin. He reached toward the console to adjust the temperature, but his hand hesitated, hovering near mine. The pause felt eternal. The rain softened, almost respectfully. "Thank you," I whispered. He nodded, but his eyes stayed on me a heartbeat too long. There it was again. That impossible awareness, that fragile, dangerous thread. By the time we reached my driveway, the world had gone quiet except for the slow rhythm of rain. He stepped out to open my door. I remember the sound of his shoes on wet stone, the scent of rain and earth. When I stepped out, the umbrella tilted just enough for our hands to touch again. Not an accident this time. Not really. For a second we just stood there. Two shadows beneath a storm, breath mingling in the narrow space between us. The house lights glowed behind me, warm and distant. I could have walked away. I should have, but I didn't. "Good night, Ayan," I said softly, my voice steadier than I felt. "Good night, ma'am." His tone was quiet, reverent, but his eyes didn't drop this time. I turned away before I could betray myself. Inside, I closed the door and leaned against it, heart hammering. The air still carried the scent of rain, and him. That was the night I knew it wasn't harmless anymore. Something had shifted. Irreversible. Undeniable. Control, I realized, was never what I thought it was. It wasn't about power or restraint. It was about the moment right before surrender. When you still believe you can step back, even as you already know you won't. And as I looked out the window, watching him drive away through the rain, one truth echoed quietly inside me. I had built my life on walls, and for the first time in years, someone had found the door. After that night, everything changed. Not in the loud, cinematic way people imagine, but quietly. Like the shift of tide under the moon, the kind you don't notice until you're already knee-deep. I told myself it was fine. That nothing had happened. That nothing would. But that was the lie I wore like perfume. Invisible, intoxicating, and impossible to wash off. He still greeted me every morning with the same polite nod, the same "good morning, ma'am." Yet there was something in the air between us now. A new gravity, pulling even in silence. Sometimes I'd catch him glancing at me through the rearview mirror, eyes flicking away too quickly, and I'd feel it again. That quiet ache. It wasn't the kind of attraction that bursts into flame. It was the slow burn, the kind that steals your breath without ever touching skin. One morning I dropped a pen between the seats. He reached for it at the same moment I did. Our fingers brushed. Again. The contact was brief, barely there, but it sent a tremor through me. I withdrew too fast, pretending to look out the window, my voice unsteady when I thanked him. He said nothing. The silence stretched, pulsing. When we stopped at a red light, he spoke, his tone low, measured. "You don't have to call me Mr. Ayan anymore." I looked up, startled. "I don't?" He smiled faintly. "No one else does." It was a small exchange, almost meaningless. But that's how it happens. The boundaries blur in whispers, not declarations. After that, I started calling him just Ayan. The name felt too intimate in my mouth, too soft. Each time I said it, something in the air shifted. A ripple neither of us acknowledged aloud. Days folded into weeks. The world outside kept spinning. Meetings, calls, perfectly curated appearances. But inside the car, time seemed to slow. There were long drives where we spoke about nothing, and everything. He asked about the painting that hung in my study, about the city before it grew crowded, about my favorite book. No one had asked me those things in years. I found myself answering honestly, too honestly. "I used to paint," I confessed one afternoon, "before everything else took over." "What stopped you?" I smiled, though it wasn't a happy one. Life, expectations, the illusion of control. He didn't look away this time. You could still start again. Some things can't be undone, I said. He was quiet for a long time. Then softly, not everything needs to be undone. Some things just need to be felt. I didn't respond, but his words lingered, the way light lingers after sunset. That evening, as he drove me home, a strand of hair fell loose across my face. He reached to hand me a tissue, but his fingers brushed my cheek instead. The world stilled. I didn't move away. We stayed like that, suspended, breathless. Then he pulled his hand back, jaw tense, eyes fixed on the road. The car felt too small, the air too charged. I should have said something. Instead, I closed my eyes and let the silence say everything for me. The next morning, I found myself waiting by the window before he arrived, watching for the familiar black car, the sound of tires on gravel. My reflection in the glass looked different, softer, maybe even younger. That realization terrified me, because somewhere between routine and confession, I had stopped being in control, and the more I tried to deny it, the more it consumed me. One rainy afternoon, the kind where the sky looked bruised, the traffic was terrible. We were stuck for over an hour. The air smelled of rain and tension. I turned toward him, studying the lines of his face. He felt me watching. "What are you thinking?" he asked quietly. "That I should probably tell you to focus on the road," I said, smiling. He smiled too, but there was a heaviness beneath it. "You don't have to pretend with me." I looked out the window. "Pretend what?" "That you don't feel it too." His words landed like thunder. For a long moment, all I heard was the rain. Then softly I said, "Ayan, you're crossing a line." "I know. And you're not stopping." He exhaled, his voice barely above a whisper. "Neither are you." The honesty of it cut through me. Because he was right. The rest of the drive was silent, but every second was alive, hearts beating louder than words. When we reached my house, I didn't get out immediately. The rain had slowed, the sky dimmed to gold. He turned to me then, hesitant but unafraid. "I don't want to make things complicated," he said, "but I can't keep pretending I don't." I stopped him with a look. My throat felt dry. "Don't say it." "Why not?" "Because once you do, I can't unhear it." His gaze softened. "Then don't." I wanted to tell him how impossible this was. How foolish. How wrong. But the words wouldn't come. Because in that moment, what I felt wasn't wrong. It was real. I opened the door and stepped into the dim evening. My hand brushed his arm as I passed, a deliberate, trembling choice. Inside, I paced the hallway, every heartbeat echoing with the sound of his voice. I had spent years building a life that looked perfect from the outside, composed, complete. And now, one glance from a man 10 years younger had cracked it wide open. The next day, he didn't speak much. Neither did I. The tension was unbearable, like standing too close to lightning and waiting for it to strike. Finally, as he dropped me off that evening, I turned to him. "Come inside, just for a minute." He hesitated, the first time I had seen him unsure. Then he nodded. Inside, the house felt too large, too quiet. He stood near the doorway, hands clasped. I poured us tea, my fingers trembling. The air between us was thick with everything unspoken. "I shouldn't have asked you to come in," I said, setting the cups down. "Then why did you?" I met his eyes. "Because I wanted to see if I could trust myself." "And can you?" I shook my head. "No." Something shifted then. Not loud, not dramatic, just inevitable. He took a step closer. I didn't move. "You don't have to be afraid of wanting something," he whispered. "You have no idea what it costs to want at my age." I said, "Then let me pay some of it," he murmured. I laughed softly, a broken, trembling sound. "You have no idea what you're offering." "Maybe not," he said. "But I know what I feel." The confession hung there, raw, unguarded. For a heartbeat, I almost reached for him, almost. But then I turned away. "You should go," I said. He nodded. but there was no disappointment in his eyes, only understanding. He left quietly, closing the door behind him. I stood there for a long time, the silence pulsing like a heartbeat. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about his words, about wanting, about fear, about surrender. It hit me then. Control wasn't power. Control was armor, and I had been wearing it for so long. I'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe without it. By morning, I knew something had changed. I couldn't stop this anymore. I didn't even want to, because surrender, I realized, isn't defeat. It's choosing to feel even when it terrifies you. And for the first time in years, I wanted to feel everything. It didn't happen suddenly. The distance between us grew slowly, like a thread unraveling. After that night, I tried to return to the version of myself the world expected, polished, controlled, untouchable. But once you've been seen, truly seen, you can't return to invisibility. Ayan still drove me every morning, still greeted me with quiet respect, but something was different. The silence between us wasn't the same. It was no longer charged with longing. It was heavy with restraint. He didn't look at me in the mirror anymore. He didn't ask about my day. He didn't linger, and it broke me in ways I couldn't admit. Because now I understood, I didn't miss the attention. I missed being known. One afternoon, he called to say he'd be late. His voice was polite, distant. Something inside me twisted. When he finally arrived, I almost didn't recognize him. Not because he looked different, but because his eyes did. "What happened?" I asked. "Nothing, ma'am." The formality cut deeper than any insult. "Ayan," I said, my voice low. "Don't do that." He hesitated, fingers tightening around the steering wheel. "You told me to stop." "I told you to go," I corrected, "not to disappear." His jaw flexed, a quiet storm behind his composure. "It's the same thing, isn't it?" For a long time I didn't answer, because maybe he was right. We drove in silence after that, but every turn of the road felt like an unspoken goodbye. When he dropped me off, he didn't wait for me to reach the door. He drove away before I could even turn around. That night, the house felt emptier than usual. I poured myself a glass of wine, stared at my reflection in the window, and whispered the truth I had refused to say aloud. I miss him. The admission didn't bring relief. It brought clarity, sharp, painful, undeniable. Days passed. Then weeks. He didn't return. A replacement driver showed up, older, polite, invisible. The world moved on, but something inside me stayed stuck in that last look, that unfinished silence. Until one morning, I saw him again. It was accidental. Or maybe it wasn't. Fate has a strange sense of humor. I was at a coffee shop near the old art district, a place I hadn't visited in years, and there he was, across the street helping an elderly man into a car. Still in uniform, still composed, but leaner, quieter. I don't know what made me call out his name. Maybe longing, maybe regret. He turned, startled, and for a moment, the world blurred around us. Ayan. He crossed the street slowly, as if uncertain whether he was dreaming. "Ma'am," he said softly, his voice cautious but warm now. "It's been a while," I said, smiling despite myself. "It has," he replied. "How have you been?" "Busy, trying not to think." That made him smile, the same quiet, knowing smile I'd missed. "Did it work?" he asked. "Not even a little." We both laughed then, softly, nervously, like two people trying to remember how to breathe. We sat together at a small table outside. The city hummed around us, but it felt far away. He told me he had taken another job, saving to finish his degree. I told him I had started painting again. "Really?" he said, eyes lighting up. "Really? You said something once, that not everything needs to be undone. Some things just need to be felt. I think I finally understood what you meant." He looked down, smiling faintly. "I didn't think you were listening." I always was. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The breeze carried the faint scent of rain, the same scent that had followed us for months. It felt like a circle quietly closing. He glanced up, eyes steady on mine. Do you ever think about what could have been? Every day, I admitted, but I've stopped wishing to rewrite it. I think some things happen exactly the way they need to. He nodded, thoughtful. Maybe we both needed to learn what we were capable of feeling, or what we were afraid of. Our hands rested on the table, close, almost touching. It wasn't the same hunger as before. It was quieter, deeper, threaded with understanding. After a while, he said, I don't regret it, you know. What? Knowing you, I smiled, and then for once I didn't hide it. Neither do I. We talked until the sun dipped low, painting the world gold. The city lights blinked awake one by one, and I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. Not of judgment, not of desire, not of being seen. When we stood to leave, I hesitated. Would you like to see some of my paintings? He smiled softly. I'd like that. We walked together down the quiet street, the evening air cool and alive. I told him about the first canvas I'd painted after years, how my hands trembled, how the colors bled together beautifully. He listened the way he always had, fully, without interruption. Inside the gallery space I had rented for the week, sunlight from the tall windows poured over unfinished canvases. He walked among them slowly, taking in each brushstroke, each corner of color. You painted this one after. He trailed off, eyes landing on a canvas streaked with deep blue and pale gold. Yes, I said. That one's called After the Rain. He smiled, eyes glistening. It's beautiful. It's what I couldn't say then, I whispered. He turned toward me. And now? Now I can. There was no confession, no grand gesture. Just quiet understanding. Two people who had broken and rebuilt themselves and somehow found their way back to the same light. I reached out, touching his arm lightly. You should go finish that degree, I said. The world needs people like you. He looked at me, not as a driver, not as a younger man, but as someone who had shared something sacred. And you, he said softly, should keep painting. We stood there for a moment, the sunlight warm on our faces. And for the first time in a long, long while, I felt peace. The kind that doesn't come from control, but from release. As he left, he turned back once. You'll let me see your next exhibition? Only if you promise to bring rain, I said, smiling. He laughed, that same quiet laugh I'd memorized once upon a time. I'll try. When the door closed behind him, I didn't feel the ache I expected. Just warmth, gentle, steady, real. Later, as the evening light poured across my paintings, I realized something simple and profound. He hadn't just been my driver. He had been the mirror I didn't know I needed, the one that reflected not who I was, but who I could still become. And though we had walked separate paths, what remained between us wasn't longing. It was gratitude, a quiet, enduring love that didn't need to be owned to be real. I opened the window then. The scent of rain drifted in, soft and familiar. The world outside glowed, alive, forgiving. I closed my eyes and smiled. For the first time, control didn't matter. Because I had finally learned the difference between power and peace. And in the gentle hum of twilight, I whispered to no one in particular. He was my driver. But he drove me home to myself. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and press bell icon follow for more stories about love, longing, and second chances. Your words keep my characters alive. Tell me what you felt while reading He Was My Driver. I thought I controlled him until I didn't.